Morning, welcome to 59 Minutes. My name is REBBECA. This morning we're going to be talking about matters to do with overcoming addiction. And to join me in that discussion is a lady who is from the neighboring country of Uganda. She hails from Uganda, from Kampala.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And has written a book called Woman, Fire, Grace, talking about her journey of redemption as well as the alignment into God's purpose. REBBECA.
Yes.
REBBECA Chisache.
Chisache.
Chisache,
yes.
Chisache.
Yes.
MAKYELI.
Yes.
Oh, when we see the K, we...
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Levi.
Good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
How do we say welcome in Uganda?
You know, it's so funny, we use karibu.
Oh, really? You do?
Yes.
So Swahili is spreading a bit?
Not even spreading, it's always been there from the days of Amin. Yeah, and so that's why it's not actually widely used in Uganda, because people still have PTSD. It has just been introduced in the curriculum, the primary curriculum, I think this year. Yeah.
Oh, because they remember all the atrocities associated
the
with
atrocities. And actually in Swahili in Kampala is spoken by policemen or thieves. For real.
Wow.
Yeah. So people are very...
There's something we've learned that we didn't know today.
Yeah.
Swahili policemen. Okay, let me... And neither are liked so much.
Exactly.
I'm assuming. Yeah?
And the army, so...
Yeah. Well, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Your story, you know, not every lady talks about addiction honestly.
Right.
And you have done that. Tell us about yourself, your childhood, and how things went.
Right. My story began in 1991, March the 13th. I grew up in Entebbe, which was the first capital city of Uganda. My father is a retired pilot, and that's why we were close to the airport. And so I grew up in a household with my father, my mother, and 6 children. I'm the last born, and I have 5 other siblings, 3 brothers, 2 sisters. 1 brother is late, the eldest is late. And at a young age, at the age of 6 years old, I think my eldest siblings, the other siblings, flew out of the country. They went to the US and the UK. Many of them have actually never come back to Uganda since. And so it was just my father, myself, my elder brother who I follow, and me in the house. Over time, my father got relocated here to Nairobi. And so in the house in Kampala, it was just myself, my mother, and my brother. And growing up, I started to realize that, you know what, something was going on with mom. My mother was a very jovial person, very generous. I do remember that growing up, our doors were open to so many relatives. They lived with us, they stayed with us. And my mother was an entrepreneurial spirit. She loved working. But she worked hard, but she played harder. We always had parties at home. Every weekend, I remember we had either a cookout or we had people coming over to drink, you know, from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But for me as a child, I was happy because I was getting to play with cousins, you know, family, friends. But over the years, I got to realize that mom had a drinking problem. And it started off slow, but as the years went by, significant things would happen, and I knew that this was something terrible. I do remember one significant incident. On numerous occasions, she forgot to pick me up from school. In primary, I was in day school. And I remember one particular incident when she was driving my friends and I to go swimming, and she blacked out on the wheel. And she was driving a huge car, it was an intercooler. I was in the co-driver's seat, and so when I looked over and I saw she was blacked out, my 3 friends were in the back who had come along with us. And I was 8 years old at this point. And so I reached over to grab the steering wheel, but it's such a huge car, my hands were barely doing anything. And I think she had passed out for about 10 seconds. And then she opened her eyes and she wakes up and she grabs hold of the steering wheel, but she saw me holding the steering wheel. And so she hit me across the face because I think she didn't remember what had happened in that time. And as a child, I couldn't scream back at my mother, I couldn't talk back at her, you know, so we just let it pass. You know, we went swimming, we ate chips, we ate chicken, drank soda, and forgot about it. As the years went by, the relationship with myself and my mom got strained. I didn't know what version of mommy was coming out of the bedroom. This day she's bright and jovial, cooking, you know, music blaring in the house. The next day she's glassy-eyed, hair unkempt. She's sitting with a bottle of alcohol. I don't know, in Nairobi, you guys I think also call it muzinga, the big bottle. She used to go through 2 bottles a day. She used to send me to go buy them. She'd go through 2 bottles a day. And, you know, I kind of resented her for it, you know. But over the years, in the year 2005, she passed away from liver cirrhosis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she went to sleep and she never woke up. She had organ failure. And
Had she had warning signs before that?
Yes, of course, looking back, now I know that there were warning signs.
Yeah.
Now, because I was a child, there were many things that I wasn't told about mom at that age. But looking back, there were numerous hospital visits, and also towards her death, she had severe jaundice. Jaundice is when your skin color changes, it becomes yellow. She had, actually, when I look at the photos towards her death, yeah, her eyes, and she was a light-skinned woman, so she went from brown to literally yellow. And her cheekbones were sunken, her eyes were red, her hair was falling out. So in retrospect, I understand that it had come to a very severe stage. And she passed away from liver cirrhosis. And I remember growing up, I said, I'll never ever take alcohol because of what I saw it do to her.
How old were you?
I was 14 when she passed. And so a year later, I was in my senior 4 vacation. I was a very good child. I was always about my books. That's how our father raised us. I used to be that child who was always home. I'd had friends who would say, you know, during holidays, may I go clubbing and this and that, but it never appealed to me, you know. And so during my S4 vacation, a good friend of mine actually reached out to me, and we were talking on phone, and he actually convinced me to go out clubbing with him. And at first I was hesitant. It was 11 in the night. In the house now, it was just my brother and I. My brother he's exactly like his father. He speaks when spoken to. He's, you know, very reserved, always in his room. He was always either fixing something or creating something in his room. That was him. Me, I was just like mom. I was the extrovert, always listening to music, always watching TV. I needed to know who was dating, who was cheating on who, pop culture. That was me. So my friend called me this day. I was watching TV. It was about 11 in the night. And he convinces me to go to a discotheque with him, you know. And because he was a close friend, I said, why not? He said, no, it's okay. We're going to just be there for 2 hours and we come back. And that was the first time I tasted alcohol. And all I needed to do was just be exposed to it and the feeling that it gave me. And I remember the next day I experienced my first hangover. I don't even remember how I got home.
What kind was your tryout?
What kind? Of alcohol? Okay, I remember when I got into the club, they took me to the counter and they asked me to order what I wanted. And the lady, the bartender, was telling me there's beer, there's whiskeys and all these. But looking at them, I started to picture the things my aunties and uncles and mom used to drink. And by then, the beer bottles were very ugly. They were really big and wide before these slim bottles came. And so I said, no, I need, you know, I don't want to take that. I actually asked for mango juice. And they laughed. They said, we don't have mango juice here. And so a friend of mine told me there was a certain type of alcohol, a brand which I won't mention, that was released around that time in 2006. And it's like a fluorescent little bottles, yeah, and they're sweet. I'm a sweet tooth, so
yeah, I know
for
those
me,
ones.
so I just, and you know, at that time it had just been released on the market, so they had promotional fridges. If you walked in a place and you saw the fridge, it illuminated the whole place. And so I looked at it and I said, that looks like, you know, it looks like soda. It looks like something I can drink. I'll have that. And I just took one sip, and wow, it was sweet. That's all. That's all. That got me hooked, the sweetness, because I had never drunk alcohol before, so I didn't know what intoxication feels like. Next thing I knew, you know, the songs were, the bass was a bit louder, you know, the shoulders are moving, then the knees. Next thing I knew, I was off the stool. In about 2 hours, I had drunk 12 bottles of those small things. And I was extremely drunk. I don't remember how I got home, but my friend dropped me home. He says he dropped me home. I woke up in the morning and I had a pounding headache. I had never experienced a kind of headache in my life. My tongue was dry. I was dehydrated. My clothes were on. My shoes were on. My bag was just next to me. And I reached for my phone and I checked the time. It was midday. And I remember the first thing I did when I reached for my phone is call my friend and ask him, where are we today? Because whatever that was, I wanted to relive it. And so that began what was the next 15 years of a downward spiral into alcohol, alcoholism, then into alcohol abuse, then finally into alcohol addiction in my life.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Of course, then you never knew how susceptible you were, considering your mom.
Absolutely.
Always, you know.
Yeah. And so it was really interesting because it took my father years to find out that I was that I used to drink at the level that I used to, because first of all, he was living here in Nairobi.
Yeah, he wasn't always home.
He rarely, barely home, you know. In a space of like 3 months, he would come home for 3 days. That's how, you know. And so I literally could do anything I want during vacation.
And so he was sending you guys the money for upkeep?
Yeah, he would send me money. I would tell him, Daddy, I need to shop this and this, and he sends me money. I wouldn't even buy anything sensible. I would go and drink it, or I would go and spend it with my friends. So I went for my A-levels. A-levels, I was in a more liberal school. I was a prefect as well, so I would leave school anytime to go and drink. But we had a lot of Kenyans in my school, and they were so friendly to me because, you know, we had reggae in the dances. It was quite interesting. But yeah, I continued. I would leave school to go and drink with my friends in Kampala. By the time I got to a senior 6 vacation, I was a seasoned 17-year-old drinker. I drank every day for those 8 months. Every day I was out partying. Every single day. And that's how my schedule would be. I would go out to drink. I would leave the house at 4 p.m., go out to drink, come back 7 a.m., sleep, wake up at 3, shower, leave the house at 4 p.m. That was my schedule every day. So by the time I got into campus, I was a pro. I was literally a pro drinker. That's what I can say. I was a first-year girl drinking with PhD students and master's students, drinking all-nighters, and you know, we could even sit in a bar. Were you functioning in class? I was for the first semester. First year, second sem, I drank my tuition. Literally drank it. Nothing sensible was done with that money. Literally drank it. And I had said that... And
your dad is thinking you're in school at this time?
Yes. He knows that my
Does he even follow up
on
you? But
he because he saw the bank slip for first year, first sem. So first year, second sem, because he wasn't here, he knew he left the money, so he expects me to be in school. Of course, he would call me. He knows my brothers dropped me at school, so he knows I'm at the university. I was at the university, but I literally was not studying. So I was drinking each and every day. Even after drinking the tuition, I said that I would find a way to put the money back. Yeah. My goodness, Levi. Tuition money is cursed. You will find money for anything, be it business, be it for food. But if you remove even 100 bob from tuition money, yeah, you will struggle. You will never.
And the plans are very clear when you're drunk. You know where to get the money.
That's so true.
It works so well.
It looks so like it's all worked out. Yeah. But you know, it was such a struggle. And by the time exam time came, I hadn't qualified for my exams because I was missing class. I hadn't done so much coursework. I didn't have the attendance, you know, the cumulative points for attendance. On top of that, I had not paid tuition, so I didn't qualify for exams. And now, clarity hit. I said, what am I going to tell my father? And so I called him up and I told him, Dad, you know what, I don't like the course I'm doing in this university. I told him I'd like to look for another university. He said, oh, okay, no problem. Come home, let's discuss it and see. So I went home. We found another university. And I moved there. It's called UCU, Uganda Christian University. This is now culture shock because now I came from a liberal university to a Christian university. And so I couldn't deal with the lifestyle of being, because now I was in first year. I had to live in a hostel.
Did you have a dress code?
A dress code, you know, it was.
Got to be in church at this time.
It was interesting. Yeah. It was
My sister
all
went
new.
to one and she really hated it.
Right? No, it was quite.
I can imagine.
Yeah. It was quite the experience, and so same thing happened. First year, first sem was good. First year, second sem, because now the friends who I knew were in second year. Now I'm in first year. So I'm the first year. They all want to spoil with drinks and this and that. And so same thing happened. I didn't qualify for exams. I wasn't doing coursework. I wasn't going to class. So I flunked first year, second sem. And now I'm looking and saying, what am I going to tell my father? I have nothing to tell him. And so what I did was I just decided to cover it up. And I continued attending the university, but I wasn't studying. My father would give me money for tuition, but I would go pay hostel fee and just drink and party. Up until third year. So,
wow.
Yeah, so in third year...
And you can actually stay in the hostels?
Yeah, because you can pay. All you have to do is just pay.
Just pay, yeah. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. They pay you, they write a receipt, and they just give you. Yeah. And so that was it. That was the life I was living. And I think my drinking spiraled because I knew at the back of my mind that I've already messed up, and somehow my father is going to find out. So I was drinking to mask that reality. And I remember at that time, I messed up so much. I was drinking so much. I flunked grades. I was putting myself in life-threatening situations. That was the time I had my first abortion, life-threatening abortion. Something I condemned myself for so many years, and even spiraled my drinking in so many instances. But eventually, of course, a thief has 40 days. My father found out, because in third year, you're supposed to write a dissertation or a thesis. But me, Rebecca, who was at home, I didn't look like someone who had a dissertation to write. I was coming home 7, 8 in the morning, leaving at 4 p.m., sleeping throughout the day. And so, you know, I believe my father found a way to find from the university whether I was really studying. And one day I was leaving the house and he showed me, he was coming in, and then he tells me, I'd like to speak to you in the sitting room. And then he shows me a transcript from UCU where there were grades for first year, first sem, and then all these others are just blank. And you know, it was the look in his eyes that really hurt me and broke me, because he's someone who always provided for us. Whatever we asked for, he always provided. You know, it really broke my heart.
I know that
and
feeling.
Yeah, and he told me, you know, just go to your room and think about yourself. And I was so heartbroken. I did not know how to, it was just a huge sense of overwhelm. I didn't know what to do with myself. I left the house for 7 days. I walked out of the house and I went to a friend's place for 7 days just to drink and party. One of my friends whose life is just drinking and partying, day, night, day, night. But of course, even after a week, my friend said, you know what, in Luganda, it sounds funnier. In Luganda, it says, Gende wakaba kulabeko. It means, go home and they see you. You know, even the person was tired of me being at their place. Go home and they see you. So I went back home. And lo and behold, my father had found a solution for me, and they were shipping me to Nairobi. Now, growing up, I loved Nairobi. Whenever I'd come visit Nairobi, Nairobi birthed my love for reggae and dancehall. Fun fact, I'm a reggae dancehall DJ up until 2020, but not anymore. And I've always loved Nairobi. And this time, my father said, I'm sending you to Nairobi, but I thought he was sending me here to work at, my father had remarried, so to work at my stepmother's shops here. Lo and behold, they had enrolled me into a convent here.
Stepmother is a Kenyan?
No, she's Ugandan, but she's lived in Kenya for a very long time. They had enrolled me in a convent, and so I didn't even know it was a convent until I got here, you know. I entered the place. I thought it was a school, you know, but it over
like a convent, like to be what? Like to be a nun?
To be, okay, this is what it is. It's a convent where some Italian fathers live. Yeah, it's like a mansion, but what they did is they turned it into a school for underprivileged girls to learn home economics, food and beverage science. So what happens is they put you in there to like do laundry, to look after the chapel, the convent, and things like that, to cook, basically
so
to teach you.
a lot of prayer and no alcohol.
Exactly, you know. And so that was the first time, I experienced what they call withdrawal. And so, yeah, it took about 2 weeks for the withdrawal to hit. I remember I was at my washing station. I always tell people there's no one who washes a spoon better than me, because in that convent, they're Italian fathers. The way they do things is special, yeah. They don't eat ugali and sukuma wiki. No, they 3-course meals. Breakfast is almond scones and peanut baguettes and things like that. And then for lunch, they have ravioli and pasta and all those things. So it was quite an interesting experience. Washing a spoon, yeah, it goes through 5 different stages of steaming and scrubbing till you see your face literally in the spoon. So it was quite a lot of work. We'd be up at 4 a.m. We sleep at 11 p.m. And so my mind was not, I wasn't used to what was going on. And so my mind began to short circuit. One day
what was supposed to be the end result when your dad took you there?
I was supposed to do, it was a course. I was doing a course. It was a course of, I think, 2 years. I've forgotten the name of the course.
And then you come out as a? I
come out with the skills to cook and to make things so that I can start my own business. Exactly. Okay. That was supposed to be the end result. Lo and behold. Yes. I experienced a mental breakdown. I was at my washing station, and my life literally was just clear before my eyes, and I just began to cry. And one of the nuns came running to me and she said, Rebecca, what's wrong? And to be honest, in that moment, I didn't know what was wrong. And I told her, I don't know, but I was just bawling my eyes out. And she tells me, no, please go to your room and rest. If you need to rest, it's okay. I went and I was just crying because now my life was flashing before my eyes. I said, I'm actually in a convent. I have flunked school. I have no qualifications. What is my life going to be like?
This is how far.
This is how far. What would mom be? Would life be different if mom was here? You know, so many things. And so I cried myself to sleep. And when I woke up, all I knew is that I had to have either a cigarette or alcohol in the next 24 hours. Long story short, I found a way to get alcohol and a cigarette. And
into the convent?
Yes.
You're resourceful.
Let's just say I'm the first person in the history of that convent to be expelled. That's all I'm going to say. If you need more details are in the book.
I hear you.
So
okay,
the mother superior, they called my mother,
Yeah.
and the mother superior was talking to her, and I could hear the language she was using. They were so traumatized. They found cigarette. They were so traumatized. The language she was using, talking to my mom, she said, your daughter is a very young, resourceful, wise young lady. Her wisdom can be used in better ways in Kampala. They were so traumatized. They found cigarettes in the convent. And so we went home, and my mother asked
After
me,
how long did they find them?
a while, like I think 3 days. A while. I don't remember. This was, for context, the year now is 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, now the year is 2014. Yeah. And so we go back home, and my mother says, what do we do for you now? Because they had run out of options. She said,
and how long had you been in this convent?
I had been there for 5 months, 6.
You're a child.
I know, I really tried. E for effort, right?
Yeah, you tried,
Yeah, so she asked me, do you want to go back to Kampala? And immediately I said yes, because all I could think about was I'm going to go back to partying, I'm going to meet my friends. Freedom, you know. And so I made my way back to Kampala. I was on the first bus the next day. Came back to Kampala, my father was home, the look in his eyes, he was so heartbroken. And he told me straight up, he said, you're going to be in my house, but don't expect anything from me. Don't expect any money, because he didn't want to be an enabler. Don't expect any money, don't expect anything. And so I was in this state where I said, okay, now I'm in hustle mode. I'm going to find a way to fend for myself. By God's grace, I got a friend who recommended me for a job. That was a time when digital marketing was coming up in Kampala, 2014. So all these digital marketing agencies are sprouting up. And so by then they didn't have the proper way to find qualifications that made you qualify for that kind of job as a social media manager or as a senior copywriter. And so they usually just banked on your social media platforms, like your reach, your likes, your content. And I was that kind of person. I used to write stories on Facebook, on Twitter, funny things that would happen at the convent, you know, just to pass time and to keep me sane, really. And so they looked at it and said, oh, wow, you have good copywriting skills. We like your reach. It's okay. So that's how I got the job. And it was paying me a lot of money, close to about 45,000 Kenya shillings here. That was my first job ever. No papers, no nothing. My first ever job, 45,000 shillings. And I would get the money, and at the end of the month, and in 2 days it would be done. 2 days, that money is gone.
How now?
How now? In the bar. See, you go to the bar and you buy for yourself, your friends, and the 8 tables around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this put me in a constant cycle of debt, because
you go make it rain.
The man of you know, and so and so before the end of the month, the money would be done. So I would have to look for money that was going to take me through the next month. So I called up a money lender, and I found a money lender. So I would stake. The company gave me a phone to use. So I would stake the company phone, and then he would give me more money. But now even that money would go in about 3 days. So I would keep borrowing money from friends to last through the month. So by the time the end of the month came, all that money would be going to paying debts. So it was a constant vicious cycle of debt.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. At home, things were tight at home. My father and I were living in the same house, but weren't speaking. So I would enter the room, he walks out. He enters the room, I walk out. We pass ourselves in corridors. You know, there was so much tension in the house. And so the bar and work were my escape from the tension at home. So I would go to work. Work was really my outlet, you know, in writing, and because I'm really a perfectionist. Yeah, when I'm working on something, I put my all in it. And so after work, I would always make sure that I go to the bar, because I didn't want to go home to find my dad. I would always go home after my father has gone to bed, after 10 a.m. But of course, if you're in a bar at 10 p.m., now the party has caught, so you're going to be there until 5 a.m. Yeah, so I would come home at 6, shower, leave the house by 7 before my father comes out of his room. That was the pattern of how I would live. So eventually one day, my boss calls me to her office and she says, Rebecca, we don't know what's happening. You came here, you were doing good work, but your work now is no longer good. Clients are complaining. There's a client who complained that you went for status meeting smelling like a distillery. What is going on? And now I felt like I was being attacked in this space. She told me, your workmates are complaining. You come smelling like cigarettes. I said, people who I thought were my friends are now snitching on me, you know. And so I started to, it really was not taking accountability. Yeah, I felt like I was being attacked. So now I wanted to find a way away from home and away from work. Yeah. Exactly. So sometime during that week, I had another breakdown at my desk. And the human resource manager came to me and she said, what's going on? And I told her, I don't know. She said, okay, go home and, you know, sort out if you need rest or you need whatever, sort yourself out. Your job will be here whenever you need to come back. But now I stayed home. I stayed home for a very long time because I went into this bout of depression that kept me there for a very long time. And so I stayed home for about 2 weeks, a month. But now you see, if you're not working, you're not paid. And remember, the moneylender has the company phone. So he sold off the phone because he hadn't received the money to pay it back. And now I fired myself from this job because I didn't have their phone. So they started calling me, and I knew they were calling me to say, you know, come back, at least if you're not coming back, bring the company property. So eventually, just to stop that wahala, I sold off even the phone that I had, because I had no money, the phone that I had, so I sold it off. I'm having pressure. My father is constantly asking me, why are you home? You know, this and this. I told him I'm on leave. And he said, but you, what kind of leave is this that doesn't, you know, that doesn't end? Why are you still home?
Oh, now he was home full time?
Yeah, because he had come back. My father retired in 2012. So now we are home.
Oh, so now he's retired. He's home all the time.
All the time. You know? And so there was a lot of tension there. And so now I started to wake up in the morning and leave home and go gallivant and drink from like nearby shops, home, go to pool tables. We used to live near a very popular beer belt in Kampala. So I would just walk there and it was like bar after bar after bar after bar. And so I would just sit there, pass time, drink tots, just to pass the day, just so I'm not home for that wahala.
So how are you financing yourself? Or you always find somebody who
You always find someone you know.
Yeah.
Always, you know. And also Kampalans have their way of partying and drinking. When you walk into a bar, you just find a group of guys. It's like Ubuntu in the bar. You can't be drinking and someone is not drinking. They look and say, no, get the lovely lady something to drink. You know, you would always find a way to drink. Yeah, so in a long story short, that went on. Then I happened to get another job. I was headhunted by another agency. But same thing happened within the first 3 months. You came here doing good work, but now what's happening? A client called saying you were smelling like cigarettes. A client called, you dropped the ball on this. A client called, you did this and this. You're also missing work. I was literally missing work because my drinking had spiraled. I was drinking up until about 7 a.m. I had to be at work at 8 a.m. Sometimes I would come to work from the bar, straight from the bar, and I would do a power nap at my desk and wake up. And I would function like that during the day. End of the day, I go straight to the bar to drink. And eventually, an incident happened where my father had reached his end point. An incident, it happened at home. And he said a lot of words, and he actually told me to leave his house. Now, all my life, all I had known was the four walls of my father's compound. I didn't know about, house hunting, look for a broker. I didn't know any other neighborhoods apart from the neighborhood I grew up in.
Yeah. And now for the first time,
he literally said, get out.
On your own. I'm going to pause you there.
Right.
I'm going to pick it up when we come back from the break.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this message. Just don't go away.